Welcome back to the MOOC course on corporate social responsibility. My name is Aradhana Malik and I'm helping you with this course. And we will be talking about, in this lecture, we will be talking about stakeholders. Who are stakeholders? What do they do? How do they influence the organization? And what this whole stakeholder theory of management is and how it applies to the to corporate social responsibility. So that is what we will be covering in this module, and there will be extended discussion on the stakeholder theory and its different facets and how that applies to CSR. So let's get on with it. Stakeholders and CSR. Okay, who are stakeholders? We talked about who stakeholders are in the initial lectures. I'll just repeat this. This is the definition that we discussed. This is in a paper by Floria and Floria. Stakeholders are the persons, institutions, organizations, formal and non-formal groups which are interested or can be affected or which could influence the company decisions or actions, and these are the stakeholders. Some more definitions have been given, and these are who are stakeholders here. So stakeholders are those groups without whose support the organization would cease to exist. They are those who benefit from. There's a long list of definitions that is given in this paper by Shin that was written in 2013 in the context of integrated marketing communication, and I've picked up the definitions that are going to be useful to you. I'll read some more from the paper itself. So stakeholders are those groups without whose support the organization would cease to exist. Now this is a definition that was given by the Stanford Research Institute in 1963. It was quoted in another paper. Stakeholders are those who benefit from or are harmed by and whose rights are violated or respected by company actions. Stakeholders are, this was a definition given by Evan and Freeman in 1988. Stakeholders are participants in the human process of joint value creation, another definition given by Freeman in 1994. Then Brenner in 1995 pointed out that stakeholders are impacting or which could impact or be impacted by the firm or organization. So anyone who is connected to the organization is a stakeholder. They are groups of constituents who have a legitimate claim on the firm. They exist through a contractual relationship, meaning they supply critical resources to the firm in exchange for their personal needs. That's a definition given by Hale and Jones in 1992. Then Wicks and Associates in 1994 said that stakeholders interact with and give meaning and definition to the company. So various definitions have been given. Then Clarkson in 1994 said stakeholders bear some form of risk as a result of having invested some form of capital, human or financial, something of value in a firm, or are placed at risk as a result of a firm's activities. So, various definitions, various ways in which this concept of stakeholders has been explored by different researchers. Different types of stakeholders, we discussed this in the initial lecture, so I won't go into detail. Based on involvement, internal stakeholders have a range of interests in the different parts of the company or organization or community and its activities. External stakeholders are outside the company. Depending on the involvement, they are individuals, companies or groups outside the companies which are influenced or could influence company or organization or community decisions and activities. Based on how they are influenced by the decisions or actions, we talked about primary, secondary and key stakeholders. Based on the amount of power and influence they have, we talked about promoters, defenders, latents and apathetics. So promoters have both great interest in the decision and power to help make it successful or to fail it. Defenders have a vested interest and can voice their support in the community but have little actual power to influence the decision in any way. Latents have no particular interest or involvement in the decision but have the power to influence it greatly if they become interested. Apathetics have little interest and little power and may not even know that the decision exists. So they are the wallflowers. But then there is one very interesting diagram that Shen has used in the context of integrated marketing communication strategy, and I think that applies to the overall concept of what stakeholders are. So I have taken this diagram from that paper. I'll give you the complete reference here. Now these days, because every organization worth its salt is required to have an online presence, I think the facts mentioned here are quite applicable to most firms. And so various things are mentioned here: market, non-market, you have online information system providers, you have online stakeholders, because every organization is expected to have an online presence, you have hardware providers, software providers, network providers, and service website, which is a part of the online system information system providers. Then these are then connected to the company, so the company is influenced by these. The companies, any organization is influenced by the stakeholders on the left, which are the stakeholders that influence the market. These are the shareholders, people who actually own a part of the company, the creditors, the employees, the suppliers, the retailers, the consumers, and the competitors. So these are the market forces acting on the company. They have a market related stake in the company. Then the company is then also there are online stakeholders. So there are online information system providers, and we have online stakeholders here. We have online consumers, we have information broadcasters, people who share the information regarding the company with everybody else. We have online regulation formulators who determine what can go on the website and what cannot go on the website. We have online competitors. People may, the online presence acts as your advertisement for the rest of the world. It acts as information about your organization to the rest of the world. Annual reports are available online. Information about your company is online and can and will be used against you in the court of law if and when required. So your online competitors could get an edge over you through various means, and I'll just show you how these people can affect what happens there. Then we have the company then influences the community, the society around it. We've discussed this ad nauseum, and community includes the corporate citizens. We've talked about corporate citizenship, and individual community members. Government, again, the administration, supervision, laws and regulations. The company is influencing the government. The laws and regulations are made for us to regulate what we do. So especially in a democracy where the government is obligated to listen to the voice of its citizens, including corporate houses. So foreign government, it has an impact on the friendship, the camaraderie we have with our foreign colleagues across the border. And conflicts, relationship, we may be conflicting with some country, but then we may also have a business relationship with them, and that is influenced by what the company does and how it conducts its business. So that also has an impact. I mean, business does not stop because of business is likely to stop, but then business also likes to continue, despite cross-border issues. So that can affect what the company does, can affect the conflicts relationship. It can affect social activity groups. What the company does for the society can affect social activity groups, consumer associations, environmental protection, child labor, bonded labor, forced labor, wages. All of these things are part of the society. So consumer associations are there. What you send out, of course, what that will be covered in employees. But then again, the social activity groups will determine or will help the company understand what the company needs to do for the benefit of the society. For the company has to give products that are usable, that are true, that are of good quality, that will last, and it has to live up to its words. So on one side there are laws, on the other side there are social activity groups, so there are consumer associations, consumer protection forums are there. Then the company also affects the media, sends out information into the media. The media is the internet, newspaper, television, other forms of broadcasting. Newspapers are there, radio is there, newspapers and magazines are there. So boards, billboards are there, all kinds of things are there. The public, again, the company is being influenced by and is influencing the public. Positive opinions, negative opinions, so all of these things are affecting the company and being affected by it. These are two-way relationships. Positive and negative opinions of the people about the company. It doesn't have to be consumers, it doesn't have to be suppliers or creditors or any of the people here on the right side, but just the general opinion about the company can influence the company. Then supportive groups, you have industry and business associations to protect the interests of the company against false allegations. You have university and research institutes. We are teaching things in our colleges and schools, and about we are using case studies, we are using examples in real classrooms. So the supportive groups are again having an impact on the company, and what the company does is then communicated through these supportive groups. Then industry associations are there. So all of these things are then influencing what the company does and being influenced by the company. Then this is then affecting the online consumer, the company. Of course, these are the online stakeholders here. So these are the non-market stakeholders on the right side, and here these are the online stakeholders, and all of these people are, all of these groups, all of these communities are being affected by the organization. So one has to be very, very careful about what one sends out, what the messages one sends, the kind of work one does, the rules and regulations of the law of the land, the society and how it's affected by what the company does. All of these things are going to make a difference to these lists are not exhaustive, so all of these things are going to make a difference to these and many more. So when we talk about stakeholders, I'm asking you to look around and see where you can find more examples of stakeholders. You may be able to put them into any of these categories. You may come up with a new category, share it with us, and we can just add to this list. But this is one of the most comprehensive diagrams I found in the literature regarding stakeholders and different types of stakeholders organizations have. So I thought I would share it with you. Then what kinds of benefits do stakeholders demand? Now we know who the stakeholders are. We have some examples of stakeholders listed. Now I'll give you some examples of the benefits that are demanded by the stakeholders. Shareholders will demand high investment returns. Sustainable development. Shareholders will demand high investment returns, sustainable development. Employees will demand a stable income, good corporate image, good benefits, and I've added two more that were not in the list provided by Shin. So congenial work environment, fair treatment, sustainable development, non-discrimination. All of these things are the demands of the employees. Creditors, people who give money, who invest money in the company, will demand a capital recovery rate. They will want to know what the recovery period is, the scope of their credit, what is it applicable to. The suppliers will want to know the loan recovery rate, how soon can they get paid for the material they supply to your organization, level of difficulty of access to raw materials, supply price. Then the retailers will need supply assurance, commodity market conditions, adaptability of existing company facilities, whether they can sell what you're giving to them, what you're expecting them to sell. So consumers will demand high quality goods, good service, low price, ease of use. The competitors will demand price levels. They will need to know where they can fix the price of the same thing that they are selling, and what are your price levels, conditions of commodity production and competitiveness, where do they stand in the market. And there are certain mandatory disclosures that everybody has to abide by. The government will need the company to abide by the law, timely and full payment of taxes. The foreign government will need the company to protect the interests of domestic enterprises, access to foreign exchange earnings. So these are some of the examples that are given here. Now the online stakeholders will need to know, the hardware provider will want to know the company scale, the commodity price. Software provider will need to know the company scale, commodity price, and the capital the company is willing to invest in the software to maintain its online presence. Network provider will need facilities to enhance the speed, the supply, price, demand requirements. The service website will need, or person who maintains the service website will need to know the content the company demands, the function, what it intends to do with its online presence, the price. Then we have online consumers who will, the business to assure, they will need to know how they can assure data security and personal privacy of the consumers. So they will need the business to assure data security and personal privacy of the consumers. When you buy something from some website, you want to know that your credit card number and details are in safe hands, and what you're buying is going to be confidential. Providing information truly, accurately, and in a timely manner, providing timely delivery of product, low cost. Online regulation formulator will need to know the internet presence of the company on the internet. The company to, or the online regulation formulator will need the company, the presence of the company on the internet to abide by the law, protection of intellectual property rights. Online competitors will need exchange business information, fair competition. Information broadcaster will want timely and accurate broadcast and abundant information. So all of these things are demanded by the stakeholders at different levels. We haven't covered all stakeholders, but I'm just trying to give you an idea of how stakeholders can influence what is going on. And there was a paper, a very interesting paper that was written by Fruman, and so he talked about, once we know what stakeholders can demand, we know what they can control also. So how do stakeholders influence firm performance? And this was a paper by Fruman, and I thought I would share this with you. And so why are stakeholders so important? That is what this paper talks about. Why are stakeholders so important? Now this the stakeholder influence, the concept of stakeholder influence draws from the resource dependence theory, which states that a firm's need for resources provides opportunities for others to gain control over it. So we need resources as an organization, and the fact that our need is public, you tell people that I need something, I cannot function without it, that becomes your vulnerable spot. It happens even in our personal lives. This becomes our very, very vulnerable spot. So it provides opportunities for others to gain control over you, because you say I am deficient. When do we say I need something? Because when we don't have it. So we say, yes, I need this from the market. So somebody will say, okay, if I need to control you, I need to capture, or I need to control what you need, so you will depend on me. Why people control resources? Why do stakeholders control resources? To convince or persuade the firm to change some behavior that it is indulging in. So that is the very basis for negotiation, for persuasion. Why do we interfere in other people's affairs? Because we want them to change something that could be affecting us. Stakeholders means I have a stake in the organization. I don't like something that the organization is doing, and I want the organization to change its behavior. So that is when I decide, I request the company, and the company says I won't do it, and then I say, okay, well, I will have to cut off your oxygen supply. I will have to reduce your access to water, so you will listen to me. So it is a pressure tactic in some way. Now, various resource control strategies. Truman says that there are two types of resource control strategies: withholding strategies and usage strategies. We either withhold the resource, we control the resource by not giving it to the organization. So we say, okay, you need water, I will cut off your water connection. You need electricity, I will cut off your electricity connection. Labor, why do we have strikes? That is a withholding strategy. Why do labor unions go on strike? Airline pilots say, we will not fly your aircraft. Why? Because flying the aircraft requires a specialized skill. We are the ones who have that skill. If we do not put that skill for use by you, you will not make any money, which is the reason why you are in business. You are an airline organization. You own aircraft that fly, that take passengers. You make money by flying passengers from one point to another point. And so pilots say, well, this is what your profits depend on. Okay, if we want you to do something, what we'll do is all of us will get together and say, we will not fly aircrafts till you listen to us. We are withholding the use of our skill by you. And so that is a withholding strategy. Usage strategy is you put more regulations in place. So they say, well, if you want us to, we will not say, taking the same example, we will not say that we will not fly the aircraft. We say, to fly the aircraft, these are the additional facilities that we need. So the pilots say, well, if you want us to fly the aircraft, we will need these additional facilities. I need a full night's rest in a comfortable place that is not, where there is no stress. So I can fly the plane for say 14 hours, New Delhi to New York flight. That is, I think, 12 to 14 hours. So halfway across the world, I am taking a plane load of maybe say 300 to 400 passengers. I need to rest. I cannot do it at home. I need you to provide me with a comfortable resting place where I can put my feet up, I can get my 8 hours of rest, I can freshen up, I have no distractions. The next day I will be ready for duty, I will be there, I will be alert, because all of these people's lives depend on me. In the aircraft, I will need a place to lie down comfortably, so that if I take a break, the co-pilot will handle it, but then we will take breaks and we will need a comfortable place to lie down, we will need food. You give us all this, we'll fly it. So that is usage strategy. You want us to use our skills, you need to give us this. Okay, so that is a usage strategy. We are not saying we will help you, we will use our skill for your profits, but we need additional facilities for us to use our skills to their maximum capacity. That is usage strategy. That is a resource control strategy. Okay, now withholding strategies determine whether a firm gets the resources. Usage strategies determine whether it can use the resources in the way it wants. You want us to work for 14 hours? No problem. Give us a room to rest in a 5-star hotel with boiled food at night, so our tummies don't rumble in the morning. We'll go fly your aircraft. And make sure that nobody disturbs us. There are no phone calls after 8 p.m. and I'll be ready for duty at 6 in the morning. No problem at all. So you give me a complete night's rest. That is one way of controlling the resources. Withholding strategies determine the stakeholders' ability to articulate a credible threat of withdrawal. When can the stakeholder walk away? The stakeholder can say, I'll put everything at stake and I will walk away. I will leave. When can the stakeholder do that? The stakeholder should have the power to do that. The stakeholder should have the power to say, I will leave this. Pilots say, well, if you don't listen to me, I'll go to another airline. So I have another job in hand. Now a pilot who doesn't have another job in hand cannot say that. But a pilot who has an excellent record can say, well, if you don't give in to my demands, I'll go to another airline. So the stakeholders' ability to articulate, to convince the organization that there is a credible threat of withdrawal will result in withholding strategies. Attaching conditions to the continued supply of that resource will result in usage strategies. Okay. Now, withholding strategy is what are the basis for resource control? The stakeholder is prepared to shut off the flow of resources, implying that the stakeholder is able to simply walk away from the relationship with no harm to itself, which implies that the firm is unilaterally dependent on the stakeholder. The stakeholder is able to say that only when the stakeholder is the one that the organization is dependent on. A major portion of the cost of changing behavior is to be paid by the firm. So the stakeholder doesn't have to do anything. The stakeholder says, pilot says, I'll go. So you will have to bear the cost of recruiting another pilot, training them and then putting them in the air. I am losing nothing. I'll go to another airline, they'll pay me more than you, or they'll pay me at least as much as you are paying. So I don't stand to lose. Usage strategy is used when the stakeholder is not prepared to shut off the flow of resources. I don't have another job in hand, so I say, please give me all this. Otherwise, there could be a risk. Mutual dependence between the firm and stakeholder. The organization needs pilots and the pilots need the job. So there is mutual dependence. The cost of changing behavior is to be shared by stakeholder and the firm. If the pilot leaves the job, the pilot will have to sit at home and look for another job. The firm will also stand to suffer. So both of them say, well, we will come together, and the cost of changing behavior is to be paid. The firm says, okay, we'll give you these facilities, but you will have to be ready for work at 3 o'clock in the morning. Pilot says, okay, if you give me the facilities, I will be. So the cost is borne by both people. Now, types of influence pathways. There are direct strategies. The stakeholder itself manipulates the flow of resources. That is a direct strategy. Indirect strategies, indirectly weakening the position of the firm by influencing others to take advantage of the firm's vulnerability. For example, the stakeholder informs the potential ally about a firm's behavior and says, so and so firm is doing this. Why the stakeholder perceives the behavior to be undesirable? They are doing this and that is harming the environment. So why don't you go ahead and do the same thing in a way that it doesn't harm the environment? That is an indirect strategy. Okay. Typology of resource relationships. Is the stakeholder dependent on the firm? If the stakeholder is not dependent on the firm and the firm is not dependent on the stakeholder, then there is low interdependence and the behavior is not likely to change. If the stakeholder is dependent on the firm but the firm is not dependent on the stakeholder, then the firm has the power. The pilot says, I will leave the job and go, and the organization says, okay, go, I have 10 other pilots waiting to take your job. So the firm exerts the power. The pilot doesn't have another job to go to. The firm says, well, pilot says, give me a 5-star hotel to stay the night, and firm says, I can't afford it. Why? And there is somebody else who's willing to stay in a 3-star hotel. So that someone will come and take your place. So the firm exerts the power on the stakeholder. If the stakeholder is not dependent on the firm, but the firm is dependent on the stakeholder, then the stakeholder has the power. Pilot says, I will leave your job and go. The firm doesn't have another pilot waiting to take the job. If this pilot leaves, then the firm, one plane will not fly. So the stakeholder has the arm twisting capacity. If the firm is dependent on the stakeholder and the stakeholder is dependent on the firm, then there is high interdependence. Both of them need each other. The pilot doesn't have another job, the firm doesn't have another pilot. Both of them know this. They will listen to each other and both will make some adjustment. So this is the way stakeholders influence firms. Now in the next class, what we'll do is we will take these concepts and see how they apply to the concept of corporate social responsibility. So I hope you've enjoyed this lecture. I urge you to think more about stakeholders. Look around in your environment and see, stakeholders don't necessarily need to apply to firms. They apply to every aspect of our daily lives. So just see how you can take these concepts and how they can apply to the life around you, and come back with some more thought on this, and we will discuss some more we will discuss more about how stakeholders affect the corporate social responsibility activities of the organization. Thank you very much for listening.